How you doing, and welcome to Neither Real Music. I'm Ed, and this is Just Play It for the piano. I apologize for the long time between posts. I was doing some contract work, and when you got work, you gotta work. So we're going to be looking at Alice in Wonderland, Sammy Fain, and Bob Hilliard. We're going to be picking up where we left off and looking at measures 33 through 40. Before we get started, please take a moment to subscribe and ring the bell so that you know when your next lesson is coming. Now, and each time I've done one of these videos, I've tried to introduce something that is a new general technique, but something that you could add into your playing that with a little bit of practice can become very common for you to use. So in this section, I used arpeggios, taking the melody note and the chord that is associated with it and setting up an arpeggio so that we can make it sound a little bit more interesting. Let's take a look at measures 33 through 40 from Alice in Wonderland. So our main melody are the notes D, A, G, C. Then D, E, F, G, A, B, G, E. The goal with that particular idea is to make sure that we can hear something of that melody coming out. So in the first chord, we're doing a D7 chord. So we're going to be starting on the note D, and effectively we're going to be walking down the chord. Now, our letters for D7 are D, F sharp, A, and C. Now, normally you would think to go D, C to walk down. I'm going to skip this C. In some cases, it's a little too close, and I'm going to drop that C an octave. Sometimes that's called a drop 2 pattern, but either way, what I'm going to be playing is the notes D, A, F sharp, D, C, and A again. So. The fingering you use is adaptable. If you want to do this or this, if you want to adjust these fingers, just pick one and stick to it. Whatever fingering you're going to do is good, but make sure you repeat it over and over and you're not constantly changing it. So D7, D, A, F sharp, D, C, A. Now from here we're going to do a jump up to the note A. And in this chord we have a G7. Now, when we add an A note to a G7 chord, we end up with a G9 chord. So we're going to be walking down, and once again I'm going to be moving that G note to a different part in the chord. So I'm going to go A, F, D, B, G, F. Once again, pick a fingering, stick to it. Now, before we move forward, the best thing you want to do is to try to play each one after the other so that you're not just learning them one at a time, you're learning them so that they stick together. For now, timing really isn't important. So, measure 33, measure 34. Now, in measure 35, we're looking at an E minor chord. So we're going to be dropping down to the note G, which in our case is lucky because it's part of the chord. And we're going to, once again, start walking down. So G, E, D, B, G, E. So measure 33. Measure 35. Now what's nice about measure 36 is we could take the pattern physically that we created in measure 35 and just move it. So this is an A minor 7 chord, and we're going to do C, A, G, E, C, A. Now, a little important piece is you want to let your first note ring for as long as possible. Don't just play it and then move on to the next note. That particular note has to stay ringing because in the music, they are dotted half notes. All of the rest of the notes are an option. When you look at the way I wrote them as eighth notes, but if you want to use your pedal or you want to just hold them down, you're more than welcome to do that, and it'll give a nice rich sound. So measure 33, measure 34, 35. And those chords are D7, G7, E minor 7, and A7. This song works really good if you practice it in groups of 4 measures. So since you have this particular section, just try to work it out before you move on. Now, in measure 37, we have this great melody that starts to walk up. And then that's measure 38. So in order to make this work, I used some tonal notes from the chord D minor 7. So D, C, now E, D, and then F, A, D, C, E, D, F, A. Okay? The addition of that E kind of just mocks like a D minor 9 chord, but with it being mostly eighth notes, it really shouldn't matter too much how you're playing it, because all we're doing is adding a little tonal factor to our main melody. So, measure 37, D, C, E, D, F, A. So if we start putting this together once again, we have measure 33, measure 34, 35, 36, now we're right here, 37, okay. Now the fingering through here can feel a little awkward. Once again, pick a fingering, stick to it. Whatever is your fingering that you're comfortable with, I want you to stick to. I will have some suggested fingerings when we're doing our practice sections, but for right now, just stick with which one works best. Now in measure 38, we're looking at another G7 chord, and we're going to be starting on the note G. But we have to move up through some sequences to get to B. So I chose G, D, B, F. Now we're going to go up to A. A, G, okay. G, D, B, F, A, G. Okay. This way we have a really good sequence that's easy to do in one hand. Now, from here, we're going to move up to the note B. Now, in this B chord, we are going to be doing a C major 7. So this is really nice because you kind of just outline it. So, okay, that's what makes that particular section easy. Okay, so B, G, E, C, and now we have to start walking down. That F becomes like an 11 on top of the C major 7 chord, but really it's just a melody tone. So B, G, E, C, G, F. B, E, G, C, G, F. Let's try putting together everything that we have so far before we do our last measure. So measure 33, D7, so D, A, F sharp, D, C, A. Measure 34 is G7, technically G9, so we're going to have A, F, D, B, G, F. Measure 35 is E minor 7, and we're going to do G, E, D, B, G, E. Measure 36 is an A minor 7 chord, and we get to reuse this physical idea. C, A, G, E, C, A. And now we're on to our little melody section, which is a D minor 7 chord, and we have D, C, E, D, F, A. And now to our G7 chord, and we have G, D, B, F, A, G. And now we're up to measure 39, which is our C major 7 chord, and we have B, G, E, C, G, F. Now if you notice, my hand is getting ready to start moving down. That's because our last chord in the sequence is an F major 7 chord, and we're going to be starting on the note E. So we have E, C, A, F, A, C. Now sometimes I do this with two hands, like going. Either way could work for you, so just pick which one you like. If you go through this and you want to just practice your chords and not really worry too much, you could block these chords out and just play them. And just feel what they are and hear what they sound like. But I highly recommend just playing them as you see them, because this is going to develop your arpeggio in time. So now what we're going to do, as usual, I'm going to give you an opportunity to practice, and you're going to get some time and a sheet music, as well as play with the synesthesia program that I use so that you can follow fingerings and use the drop-down bars to help align where your fingers are. So first, let's get started and take a look at this with some sheet music. 1 and 2 and 3 and. Now let's check it out with the synesthesia program so you can see the drop-down bars. 1 and 2 and 3 and. Now I'm going to remove my hands from the equation, and you're just going to get the sheet music and the synesthesia program so that you can just see how the two line up. 1 and 2 and 3 and. Now, it's up to you. Practice with a little bit of sheet music, and you will not hear me playing in the background. 1 and 2 and 3 and. Now let's try that with the Synthesia program. 1 and 2 and 3 and. I really hope lessons like this are helping you become a better player. It's real easy to take very simple ideas and practice them so that you can turn a simple idea into something that sounds really complex. Arpeggios aren't a hard idea, but unless you practice them physically and make them work and make your hands use them, they become a little bit more difficult in the beginning, not over time. So take a moment, go through this, practice it as you see fit. Please remember to subscribe and ring the bell so that you can know when your next lesson is coming up. And if you have an opportunity, please check out my Patreon page. There's not a lot up there, but a donation of $1 could really help me find time to create more content, because most of the stuff that I do is free of charge and for my students. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Compliments are nice, but questions let me know that you're working on these things. Good luck and good practice.